Zelensky warned it was coming. Hours later, Kyiv was burning. 8 dead, dozens wounded, 2,200 drones, 1,700 guided bombs, 106 missiles in a single week. The NATO summit opens in Ankara tomorrow. Putin timed this, he always does. Russia launched another large-scale missile and drone assault on Kyiv and the surrounding region overnight on July 6th, killing at least 8 people and injuring at least 34 others, just hours after Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky warned that Moscow was preparing a fresh wave of attacks. Ukrainian officials said residential buildings in the Podilsky and Darnitsky districts were struck, with part of a multi-story apartment block collapsing after a missile impact. Kyiv Mayor Vitaly Klitschko said the attack also destroyed a non-residential building, garages, warehouses, and damaged civilian infrastructure in the capital.
The attack destroyed a non-residential building in the Podilsky district, as well as several garages, a warehouse, and non-residential buildings were also damaged in the Holosivsky and Darnitsky districts. Homes, businesses, and other civilian infrastructure facilities have been damaged in the communities of Bucha, Vyshhorod, and Brovary in Kyiv Oblast. Rescue crews were pulling residents from buildings shattered by the overnight barrage.
Reuters journalists reported repeated explosions across the capital as air defenses engaged incoming drones and missiles. Thousands of residents sought shelter in metro stations and underground parking garages as air raid alerts were issued across much of Ukraine. The assault came only hours after Zelensky warned that Ukrainian intelligence had detected preparations for another major Russian strike.
Intelligence once again indicates that the Russians are preparing a new massive strike. This is typical of Putin, right after America's Independence Day and before the NATO summit in Ankara. Russia wants to bring more evil and kill people. Please stay safe and heed any air raid alerts.
Zelensky also renewed his appeal to Ukraine's allies for additional Patriot air defense missiles, arguing that delays were costing civilian lives.
Separately to partners, any delay with missiles for our air defense, missiles for Patriots, means the loss of lives, and it encourages Russia to continue the war. The world has the necessary quantity and quality of air defense. What is needed are your decisions to ensure real protection of lives in Ukraine.
Zelensky stated that over the course of the week, Russia launched approximately 2,200 attack drones, more than 1,730 guided aerial bombs, and 106 missiles of various types in Ukraine. The latest bombardment comes ahead of Zelensky's planned meeting with US President Donald Trump on the sidelines of the upcoming NATO summit, and follows Trump's recent phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The attack also follows Putin's recent pledge to continue Russia's campaign of large-scale missile and drone strikes, as fighting and long-range attacks continue to intensify despite ongoing diplomatic efforts to end the war. At the same time, the Kremlin has renewed its warnings ahead of the NATO summit, alleging that Ukraine uses such gatherings to stage provocations. Dmitry Peskov was asked if Russia is expecting more.
The Kyiv regime times these actions to coincide with major summits. The NATO summit is coming up soon. By all accounts, should we expect more serious provocations? We must be prepared for provocations and remain vigilant at all times. There is a war going on. It's a real war. You know why this is a war? It started out as a special military operation, but it continues as a war because Berlin, Paris, The Hague, Oslo, Washington, unfortunately too, actively support Kyiv. They're helping take aim through their satellites. They're helping direct foreign weapons at our targets through their entire infrastructure. Under these circumstances, we must be fully aware of the situation. The Kyiv regime is capable of anything.
Pressed on recent comments by President Zelensky and the prospect of further attacks, the Kremlin spokesperson claimed Ukraine was stepping up what he described as terrorist actions.
We cannot rule out even greater provocations by the Kyiv regime. Zelensky stated yesterday that only the island of Moscow will stop Putin. I don't know what he means by that. What do you think of this rhetoric and these statements and actions by the Kyiv regime? Well, the main thing, I suppose, isn't rhetoric, but actions. These actions are of a terrorist nature. The Kyiv regime is striking our energy facilities and civilian infrastructure, targets that have absolutely nothing to do with the military-industrial complex. This is a completely obvious manifestation of the Kyiv regime's terrorist nature. Why is this intensifying now? Because the situation on the front lines is deteriorating for Kyiv with each passing day. Our troops are advancing.
The overnight assault and the Kremlin's latest remarks underscore how rapidly the conflict continues to intensify. With NATO leaders set to convene in Ankara, both military operations and diplomatic tensions are expected to remain in sharp focus.